Thermal pollution, sometimes called thermal enrichment, is the degradation of water quality by any process that changes ambient water temperature. A common cause of thermal pollution is the use of water as a coolant by power plants and industrial manufacturers. Other causes of thermal pollution including soil erosion. This will elevate water and expose it to sunlight. When water used as a coolant is returned to the natural environment at a higher temperature, the sudden changes in temperature decrease oxygen supply and affects ecosystem composition. Fish and other organisms adapted to particular temperature range can be killed by an abrupt change in water temperature, known as thermal shock. Consistent soil erosion causes water bodies to rise, making them more exposed to sunlight. The high temperature could prove fatal for aquatic biomes as it may give rise to anaerobic condition. This process is similar to deforestation, which is a condition in which the trees and plants are no longer protecting the rivers or lakes from excess radiation. Causes of thermal pollution. Water as a cooling agent in power, manufacturing and industrial plants. Production and manufacturing plants are biggest source of thermal pollution. These plants draw water from nearby source to keep machines cool and they release back to the source with higher temperature. Soil erosion is another major factor that causes thermal pollution. Consistent soil erosion causes water bodies to rise, making them more exposed to sunlight. The high temperature could prove fatal for aquatic biomes as it may give rise to anaerobic conditions. Trees and plants prevent sunlight from falling directly on lakes, ponds or rivers. When deforestation takes place, these water bodies are directly exposed to sunlight, thus absorbing more heat and raising its temperature. Urban runoff discharge to surface waters from paved surfaces like roads and parking lots can make water warmer. During summer season, the pavement gets quite hot, which creates warm runoff that gets into the sewer system and water bodies. Natural causes like volcanoes and geothermal activity under the oceans and seas can trigger warm lava to raise the temperature of water bodies. Lightning can also introduce massive amount of heat into the oceans. This means that the overall temperature of the water source will rise, having significant impact on the environment. Next, the effects of thermal pollution. Decreased dissolved oxygen. Warm water holds less oxygen than cool water. If the oxygen level drops, animals that cannot move to another area may begin to die. In deeper bodies of water, the injection of warm water can keep oxygen from dispersing into deep water, which is potentially good for bacteria but dangerous for aquatic animals. The decreased oxygen can cause algae blooms that pose a threat to aquatic plants and animals. This algae bloom problem is probably the most common and best known side effect of thermal pollution. Migration. Fish and amphibians may move away from the warm water to a more suitable location, disrupting the ecosystem for animals that remain. Birds may also be forced to live in search of area that with more food. Plants and certain animals will be stuck in the area, which can lead to huge losses. Migration away from the polluted area contributed to a dramatic loss of biodiversity at sites where thermal pollution happens. Increased toxin. Toxins in the water are more a side effect of dumping wastewater than a direct effect of thermal pollution. Chemical pollution is an almost inevitable side effect of using water for cooling. Solvents, fuel oil, and dissolved heavy metals end up in the lake or river where the cooling water gets dumped. Nuclear power plants can also release slightly radioactive cooling water. The chemicals may have a range of toxic effects on plants and animals, from fatal poisoning to mutations and sterilizations. Loss of biodiversity. The sudden heating can kill off vulnerable organisms or drive them away. This is one of many serious issues for threatened and endangered animal species. This loss can come from organisms dying from the hot water, being unable to reproduce as effectively as before, or simply leaving the area. Ecological impacts. Thermal shock can kill off insects, fish, and amphibians. The sudden loss of life causes further issues with the ecosystem. A threatened or endangered local pollution may be wiped out or put under or even more pressure. Coral reef bleaching has also been observed when a power plant or factory is dumped into coastal water. Coral bleaching happens when the coral organism die. Reproductive effects. A significant temperature increase in the water can cause reproductive problems. Warmer water can reduce the fertility of some organisms. Other species may suffer birth defects or lay deformed eggs because of chemical changes in the body caused by warmer water. Increased metabolic rate. Warmer water may be good for cold-blooded fish and amphibians, but only for a limited time. One of many real problems that warm water may cause is faster metabolism, which means animals need more food.
Rain is so important. It falls from clouds and lands in rivers, streams, lakes, the ocean, and in our cities. Runoff is rainwater that flows over the surface of the earth. Not bad at all, right? But did you know runoff is the source of almost all water pollutants? It carries pollutants from impervious surfaces like streets and roofs into storm drains, which lead right to your local water body. Once pollutants enter the water body, plants and animals can be hurt. One way they can get hurt is by thermal pollution. Thermal pollution happens when the sun heats the ground and runoff flows over it, picking up the heat and dumping it into the local water body. This is terrible for the plants and animals because here in Maine, they are used to colder water than is being dumped into their home. As a result, warm water species can move in and take over, and the cold water species will die out. But this is not cool. First of all, what about your favorite snack that comes right from the lake which is being polluted? Yuck! Second of all, there will be no native organisms that animals higher up on the food chain rely on for survival. But you can do something about it. You can plant trees. Trees will keep the ground cool so that when runoff flows over it, there will be no heat to pick up. You can also do things that prevent runoff, like reducing impervious surfaces and planting rain gardens. Together we can prevent water pollution and keep our lakes, rivers, streams, and oceans healthy.
Created using Powtoon.